This fatty possesses countless avatars. Each avatar's cultivated abilities will feed back to the main body. What kind of experience is it to become the world's strongest while lying down? On a certain day in 2099, portals and countless monsters suddenly appeared in the sky, causing over half of the world's population to die. Due to the urgent need for personnel to resist the monster invasion, a project called the Awakening Plan was launched to allow more civilians to awaken. The male protagonist, Jong Sang-woo, was lucky enough to be selected to participate in the awakening ceremony. The wormhole in front of him is the key to ordinary people awakening. A girl has only awakened the power of Fire Phoenix. Countless powerful guilds have thrown olive branches at the girl. Jong Sang-woo, who has also entered the transformation, was soon found by the guild seniors. Handsome, look and see what kind of talent you've awakened. Upon hearing this, Jong Sang-woo, full of hope, opened the attribute panel, but found that not only were his attributes weak, but his awakened talent was also a weak avatar technique. The senior who found out the situation changed his previous expression. Little fatty, turn right at the front door before you go out. With such a big head, you're blocking me from seeing others. Jong Sang-woo, who felt the harsh reality, returned home and reluctantly opened his skills. He saw magic constantly flowing within him. With a loud shout from Jong Sang-woo, "Come out!" a light flashed from within him. A teenager identical to Jong Sang-woo appeared out of nowhere. Watching the doppelganger in front of me with a similarly small bro as myself, the atmosphere suddenly became awkward. Jong Sang-woo quickly found a set of clothes for him to wear. To test the loyalty of the doppelganger, Jong Sang-woo made him squat and stand repeatedly. However, the result exceeded his expectations. Whenever Jong Sang-woo thought of something, the doppelganger would move according to his instructions. With the system's prompt, Jong Sang-woo accidentally discovered that he could also get stronger as he trains with the mini version. A week later, in a park, a young man wearing overalls had already run 250 kilometers continuously. Even the muscular man who came to practice couldn't help but ask, "Is this young man just heartbroken?" And the young man is none other than the incarnation of Jong Sang-woo. Ever since Jong Sang-woo's incarnation awakened, he has been controlling his own incarnation to work out like crazy. Thanks to him, Jong Sang-woo happily watched as his weight decreased from 300 pounds. Despite not having to do anything, his physique continues to get stronger. By tormenting his incarnation over time, Jong Sang-woo has also learned a lot about his incarnation. The damage and pain that the incarnation experiences do not reflect back to the original. However, if the damage to the incarnation exceeds its limit, it will automatically be recalled. The attributes obtained from the workout also apply to the original and all incarnations, and the original can control the incarnation, ignoring distance. Just 2.5 months, Jong Sang-woo's abilities and attributes have rapidly improved. However, just as Jong Sang-woo started to fantasize about a better life, a bill suddenly appeared on his cell phone. Due to his recent uncontrolled expenses, Jong Sang-woo's already small savings were quickly emptied. If he didn't start earning money soon, he would really starve. Thinking of this, Jong Sang-woo quickly searched for a job. A job as a delivery worker quickly caught his attention. Such a job that could exercise his body and earn money was perfect. As Jong Sang-woo dialed the recruitment phone number, he was surprised to find that the person on the other end was actually his uncle. Upon hearing that Jong Sang-woo was looking for a job, his uncle was very enthusiastic and invited him to come to his home to tutor his daughter. Looking at his pitiful cell phone balance, Jong Sang-woo agreed after a moment of contemplation. According to the agreement last night, Jong Sang-woo arrived at his uncle's house early, but as soon as he reached the doorstep, he heard a quarrel from inside the house. It seemed that his daughter was complaining to her father about why he had found a tutor without her consent. Jong Sang-woo, who was outside the door and was distracted by the noise, was hit by his uncle, who opened the door. Looking at Jong Sang-woo, who was knocked down on the ground, his daughter's face instantly turned red. In the following communication, Little May changed her stubborn and impulsive attitude. She blushed and muttered in a low voice, "Why isn't it raining?" The uncle and aunt next to her also excitedly ate melons. Finally, someone was able to control their daughter. Seeing the delicate atmosphere, the uncle quickly found an excuse and left. After a brief understanding of Little May's weak point in her studies, Jong Sang-woo took her to review 2 hours of biology. The happy time was short. Jong Sang-woo returns home. After a brief reminisce, he still focuses his energy on making money again, because relying solely on brick carrying and tutoring is far from achieving financial freedom. Jong Sang-woo, sitting in front of the computer, opened the largest hunter forum in each country. When he saw that an ordinary branch can be worth $100 million, his brain burned. This was only the tip of the iceberg. In the mall, any random skill is worth 100 million. Since the consumption of hunters is so high, the income of hunters should also be extremely high. Mom and Dad, I want to be a hunter. Jong Sang-woo was unable to control his excitement after watching these. He immediately headed to the Hunters Guild. No one would have thought that this decision would change his life. When Jong Sang-woo arrived at the Hunters Guild, it seemed as if he was favored by the goddess of fortune. He not only passed all the hunter exams with ease, becoming a registered hunter of level F, but he also met the man who changed his life. Congratulations on passing the hunter exam. My name is Mr. Kong. I am a hunter agent. If you need it in the future, I can provide services for your experience. However, Jong Sang-woo ignored him at the moment because the system sent a notification. Congratulations, the host's avatar has reached level 2. Currently, 2 individual units can be summoned. Excited, Jong Sang-woo just threw a sentence, "Contact you later," before leaving directly. Only Mr. Kong was left crying. Jong Sang-woo, upon returning home, could no longer suppress his excitement and summoned both of his split personalities. He began his evil plan. While some are happy, others are sad. Mr. Kong, after a busy day, was left with nothing to show for it. He used to be a top-notch agent a year ago, but has fallen from grace because he refused to compromise his principles and associate with the corrupt higher-ups. He has been banned by his former union and has not been in business for half a year. Just as Mr. Kong was considering giving up, his kindness led to his redemption. Jong Sang-woo, who took Mr. Kang's business card during the day, called him and they soon met up at a coffee shop. In their conversation, Mr. Kong learned about Jong Sang-woo's F-class split personalities, and instead of judging him, he gave him advice and recommendations. The first recommendation was the slime hunting ground. Although monsters release acidic fluid and poison gas after they die, it is safe to wear protective gear and masks for a short time. The second recommendation was the rabbit hunting ground, which is protected by a protective wall and is safe for hunting. However, this also has its drawbacks, as rabbits are very agile and difficult to hunt. As the conversation came to an end, Jong Sang-woo interrupted Mr. Kang's speech. "The places you recommended are all great, and I'm satisfied with the ratios for buying and selling hunting equipment. I'm willing to sign a contract with you as a broker who is sincere like you." Mr. Kong, who heard this, didn't hesitate and asked immediately about which hunting ground they were going to arrange. But the next moment, one hand suddenly grabbed onto the contract. "There's no need to waste your time. What I meant by saying both places are good is that I want to hunt in both hunting grounds at the same time." Mr. Kong was suddenly confused as he looked at the 2 identical men in front of him, because no matter if it was the record of supernatural powers or the people who had awakened the divided body technique he had come across before, their skills were all impressive without exception, but they all had an absolute fatal flaw. Those divided bodies were all just illusions. Therefore, the divided body technique was only rated as F level, and they could only use illusions in teams to attract monsters. Until now, Jong Sang-woo is the only person who can summon a real entity divided body. Mr. Kong was amazed as he looked at Jong Sang-woo, who was drinking coffee in front of him. "I really came across the 1 in a million talented young man." Jong Sang-woo, who looked at Mr. Kong, who was excited in front of him, also raised his own question. Could he enter different hunting grounds at the same time? Mr. Kong, who was excited, said that this situation had never happened before, but he could apply for Jong Sang-woo specially. They then agreed to meet 2 days later. Soon, 2 days later, Mr. Kong, who couldn't wait any longer, brought Jong Sang-woo to the Hunter Association. Due to his special circumstances, others only need to sign 1 confidentiality agreement, but Jong Sang-woo needs to sign a thick stack of them. After Jong Sang-woo finally filled out the forms, under the enthusiastic urging of the researchers, he summoned his clone. With a flash of light, the identity information was collected. The old doctor gazed at the physical clone in front of him, and as he looked at the old man's greedy eyes, Jong Sang-woo quickly fled the scene with his second clone. In a gym, a young man has been exercising for 2.5 days without eating or drinking, and even though his bound hands were stained with blood, he had no complaints. He received a call. On the other end of the line was a voice like an order. "Number 1, come back. It's time to work." In the slime hunting ground, the poison was spraying everywhere. After experiencing the collection work, Jong Sang-woo kept complaining about the hard work. Mr. Kong told him that if he trains here, he needs to wear these heavy protective suits every day. Jong Sang-woo looked at the corroded gloves and realized that this was not suitable for someone like him who was lazy. He then turned to look at number 2 behind him and said, "Leave this tiring and dangerous work to you, number 2. Then he threw all his equipment to number 2. Watching number 2's determined back, Jong Sang-woo shed tears of regret. Turning to Mr. Kong, Jong Sang-woo said, "Let's go to the corner of the hunting ground." Soon the 2 of Jong Sang-woo arrived at the second hunting ground. After a short rental of weapons, they followed Mr. Kong to the corner of the rabbit hunting spot. Mr. Kong asked with doubt whether Jong Sang-woo had confidence in himself. While Jong Sang-woo showed his full score in shooting tests during the hunter examination, he said that there was nothing difficult about hunting silly rabbits. He then picked up his gun and prepared for today's hunt. After aiming for a while, Jong Sang-woo decisively pulled the trigger, but to his surprise, the supposed silly rabbit easily dodged his bullet. Before he knew it, it was nighttime and Jong Sang-woo still didn't catch any rabbits. Painful Jong Sang-woo, after some thought, has decided not to be a human anymore. He ordered number 1 beside him, "If you hit it, send me a text with a 1. Then he went home by himself. As he slowly drifted into sleep, the phone beside him stirred. He saw that the phone was continuously receiving texts from number 1. The next morning, Mr. Kong received a call. Due to number 1 hunting continuously for 24 hours, the hunted jackrabbits piled up like a mountain, blocking the road. As his agent, he came to stop it. Upon hearing this, Mr. Kong quickly headed to the hunting ground. Jong Sang-woo, who just got up on the other side, was stunned as he saw his phone, but Mr. Kong was too busy because number 2 was in trouble again. Number 2 in front of him was constantly spraying blood from his mouth and nose, and beside him was the blood of slimes, which dozens of people might might not be able to collect. Upon seeing this, he quickly dialed Zhang Seng's phone. Bad news.